What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unhinged Talk. As usual, I'm your host, Patrick Hensey, joined today by the man, Brian DeGennaro. How are we doing today, Brian?
Fantastic, Pat. So hyped. What's up with you?
Listen, I can't complain as usual. Today I do want to focus on Gary Sanchez, Kyle Higashioka, kind of the battle that's going on between them. However, before we get into that, everyone be sure you guys know the deal: like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more. We're going live before and after every single Yankees game this season, so stay tuned for that content. But let's focus on Kyle Higashioka. Let's focus on Gary Sanchez because honestly, this is one of the only positional battles that's going on within the Yankees right now, and I could honestly say that I think Kyle Higashioka is beating out Gary by a long shot. And that's kind of not a knock on Gary Sanchez because Gary has improved from his 2020 season at the plate. He doesn't look as lost, but I think it's more so how good Kyle Higashioka has been. Let me pull up some stats from Higgy here really quick. I'll give you a slash line. 265 with a 375 on base percentage and a 1,000 OPS. And that's just offensively. Like, if you look at his defense stats, we kind of know Higgy's a better defensive catcher than Gary Sanchez. Not by that much, but he's pretty solid, especially framing-wise. Solid catcher. But also, I feel like he has such a better impact on the rotation as a whole. We know Kyle Higashioka is Garrett Cole's kind of personal catcher for the past few seasons now. And also, Corey Kluber's last two starts have been with Higgy catching, and we saw vintage Kluber. In his last two starts, he's been unreal. You look at his second to last start against Baltimore, he went 6 2/3, only gave up 1 run. And then his last start against Detroit went 8 shutout innings, only gave up 2 hits. So, I guess this leads us to ask the question, was it always just a Higgy Cole thing? Or now has it become a Higgy just makes everyone better thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question you can ask. It seems like, if you think about Cole, right, he's a guy that we think is just so locked in baseball-wise. We know that he's a guy that overanalyzes everything. So if he's saying that, Kyle Higashioka is the guy for him, I mean, it's almost, you almost can't question it, So I've always thought that Gary Sanchez was the guy that was really good at calling games. He's been praised for that a lot in the past, but lately it seems like Higashioka might even be better than him in it because everyone seems to be pitching better behind, with Higashioka behind the plate. So it's really this interesting dynamic that we have between the two because you got all these little factors that are up in the air. It's just so exciting to have this kind of this positional battle right now.
No, yeah, and that's kind of the thing, but I think the positional battle hurts Gary Sanchez more than we think.
Yeah.
Just because we know Gary is a very streaky hitter, and I can't see him being the type of guy who's going to perform well, kind of platooning with Kyle Higashioka. I don't see him ever getting hot like this, and I think the Yankees are kind of setting up Gary Sanchez for failure. At this point, I hate to say it, but it's kind of true. But I mean, all offseason and all spring training, I was a big Gary apologist. Kind of saying no matter what, Gary Sanchez is your starting catcher. He needs to be catching Cole majority of the time because in the postseason you want Gary's bat in the lineup. But now that we're kind of a month into the season, I hate to say it, but I think I'm backtracking. I think it's kind of come to the point where I'm a fan of Kyle Higashioka being the Yankees starting catcher. I think it's just like you said, so many factors involved. I think Higgy has to be the guy right now.
Well, it's so weird because, you see Gary Sanchez and he has all this potential. We've seen how good he can be when he's hot and he just lights it up. But he hasn't been that guy for a while. He hasn't gone on even a really hot streak in a long time. He's just been bad for the most part for the past 3 years, basically. And we saw him go on a little bit of his hair in the very beginning of the season, and then he cooled off. And since then, he's kind of been cold. And if Higashioka is going to be consistent, he doesn't have to continue putting up the numbers that he has been. But if he does, are you kidding me? It's a no-brainer right now. He's obviously the better catcher right now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing you mentioned. Gary got off to a solid start to start the season.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Gary, I mentioned this earlier, he's not having as bad of a season as he did in 2020. Just approach-wise. He's not really getting the hits that he did. If you take out the first 2 games of the season, when he went 3 for his first 7, Gary Sanchez is now 8 for his last 54, which brings his slash to 148 with a 303 on base and a 167 slugging. So obviously the on-base percentage is not that bad considering his batting average, but the slugging, 167.
Terrible.
but that's kind of my thing. I think if Gary Sanchez was on any other team right now, he would still be the starting catcher. But with the
Yeah.
emergence of Kyle Higashioka and his 1,000 OPS, there's no
Who
way
would
you
have
could keep
thought?
Gary in the lineup. And I think
No.
I kind of just feel bad for Gary at this point because we talk about this all the time. Gary was judge before judge. Gary Sanchez was the guy in the Yankees organization. A lot of people forget the impact he had on this team in 2016. He was Babe Ruth, Brian. He was Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
And even 2017, he had a solid year. And I feel like ever since then, he also put up home run numbers in 2019 and got hot for a few months. But I mean, other than that, it's just like I don't know if we're ever going to see that 2016 Gary again. And it sucks to say because I feel like with the right hitting coach and kind of with the right coaching staff behind him, we could see it again. But I don't know if this is a hot take, but I don't know if we'll ever see it again with the Yankees.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and it's tough to feel bad for the guy, honestly, because he's had 2+ years to get it together, and he hasn't. Like we've seen that he hasn't changed his approach. Nothing has really been adjusted to get back to where he was. So it's hard for me to feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, the coaching staff has really not helped him. We talk all the time about how Marcus Thames is not really that great of a hitting coach. He's overhyped, and he has a hard time getting these guys out of bad slumps. So, it's a tough position, and it sucks. It really does suck because we saw the potential that Gary had, right? We saw in 2016 how crazy good he was. I mean, like I'll never forget that time that he was getting intentionally walked and stepped out of the batter's box to hit a sac fly.
Unreal,
Like
bro.
the most bonkers thing that I've ever seen. And if that's his legacy, I mean, it is what it is. But I think you're right. I think at this point, there's only so much you can do. We've given the guy 2+ years to get it together, and nothing's changed. So I mean, at this point, I think it might be time for the Yankees to move on, and maybe he'll be able to find success elsewhere.
Yeah, it's like a sad relationship at this
It
point. But I
sucks,
mean,
man. It's tough. I just
that's
went
really
through it with the Jets. I mean,
yeah, exactly. But like that's kind of the saddest part. It's more so like right now in the situation that Gary's in, where he's platooning with Higgy for the most part. It seems like he's getting the less amount of time out of the two
yeah,
of them.
yeah,
In order for him to win that starting job back, one of two things would have to happen. One, an injury, knock on wood, no injury happens. Or two, Gary would have to get a hit in just about every single at bat. He would have to get really hot, which is possible, which is very possible from Gary. Don't get me wrong. However, I
yeah.
think it's much less likely considering the playing time that he's getting and how streaky of a hitter Gary is and how it takes him a while to kind of get on that hot
Absolutely.
streak.
But I mean, this also goes back to the whole Giancarlo Stanton thing. Like, if
Yeah.
we didn't have Giancarlo Stanton stuck in the DH spot, you could have Gary DH while Kyle Higashioka, catches, or vice versa. You
Yeah.
can get these guys extra at bats, but you can't do that because they refuse to play Stanton in the field. So you're kind of just in this bad spot, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic for another day, but that is going to wrap things up for us today. Everyone, be sure you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications. We're going live before and after every single Yankees game this season, so stay tuned for that. But you guys know the deal. Also, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. Peace.